Let's have a session on the Blake-Mouton grid. So the Blake-Mouton grid is a tool to help analyse the behaviours of managers and leaders. And that will be judged on two criteria, which is essentially their concern for people, their concern for workers, and their concern for production in terms of output volume or quality. And they are essentially the axis for the grid. So concern for people, low and high. Concern for production, low and high. Just a simple grid there. But within the grid, there are 5 categories that we need to be aware of. So the first is if you have no or low concern for production and very low concern for your staff, then that's not really a good recipe for a good manager, and it's sometimes referred to in the original Blake-Mouton as an impoverished style. It was actually updated in 1999, that is, to being an indifferent leader, so they are interchangeable if you see those. More details about the likely impacts of these styles on the next phase of this video. So the next is that if you have low concern for production and high concern for people, well, that's referred to as country club management. Sometimes it's referred to as an accommodating leader. The next is if you have high concern for people and high concern for production, well, this is seen as the optimal style according to Blake and Mouton. And it's based on theory Y, McGregor's theory X, theory Y. More details on that, click the card up there. But the idea is that if you have high concern for people, high concern for production, clearly you are in the right category here, according to them. And that's the idea you'd be a team leader. A team leader, or sometimes referred to as a sound leader. The next is if you are in the category that is high concern for production, but not much concern, low concern for people. This is referred to as produce and perish, or a dictatorial leader. And this is seen as ideal if you're in a business crisis, and it's very much based on theory X style of management. The last is the middle of the road management style, and that is simply that you are in a compromised situation where you have some concern for people and some concern for production, and it's referred to in the original Blake-Mouton as middle of the road, but it was updated to status quo. Now let's look at each of the likely impacts of using these types of management styles. So we'll start with the first one, which is the impoverished management style, where you've got low concern for people, low concern for production. So if you've got low concern for people, that's likely to mean your staff will be demotivated. It could lead to higher absenteeism. It could lead to production falling, productivity falling, and it could lead to your staff turnover increasing. It's likely if you've got low concern for people and production, you probably as a manager are going to be risk averse. If you're risk averse, it means you're less likely to be innovative, so innovations like to fall, and there will be no future efficiency gains. Naturally, this is the least effective of all the styles. Now, the next is produce or perish. This is when you have high concern for tasks, but not much concern for your people, for your workers. It's seen as being an authoritarian style. It's closely related to McGregor's theory X and the idea that you think that your workers are simply demotivated and you need to keep them on a rigid structure in terms of keeping them working. This may suit a business that's in a crisis, so this is where potentially this method works. But in the long term, it's likely if you've got rigid rules and you're just telling your workers what they have to do, there's no delegation, no consultation with them, then it's going to lead to demotivated staff, absenteeism and turnover issues in the future. However, as said before, it may make sense in a crisis, or it might actually inspire productivity increases in the short term, but certainly not in the long term because of those motivation issues. The next is country club management, which is kind of the opposite of that you actually have high concern for people and low concern for production. It's seen as being an overly friendly management style, but it leads to lower productivity and ultimately failure. The reason why is because it lacks coordination and lacks organisation, because you don't really have concern for the production, and it's seen as not being very effective. The next one is the middle of the road management, which is a medium for both, a medium for people, medium concern for production, and it's seen as being really just a compromise. It's a compromise between them, so therefore you still get those long-term demotivation issues because you're not really doing enough for your people, and you're going to get those long-term output issues because you're not really that fully concerned and invested in your idea of your productivity, volume or quality. The last is team leader, which is what Blake-Mouton referred to as being the optimal style. This is when you have high concern for people, high concern for production. Most effective. The reason why is because employees' needs are being met, and it's very closely related with theory Y within McGregor's theory X, theory Y style. And therefore, it could lead to higher production, higher quality, and that would maintain in the long term because of your concern for those people. So I hope that helps with Blake Mouton, and I'll see you at the next sesh.